Tonight on All In.
My son is concerned. My son is a wonderful young man.
The President of the United States defends collusion with Russians.
He took a meeting with a Russian lawyer.
And the President denies treason.
It's called opposition research.
Tonight, the new call for Donald Trump Jr. to testify next week. The mounting troubles for Jared Kushner. The new scrutiny of the president's oligarch friend. And why the Trump family defense of attempted collusion in emails points to bigger problems ahead.
I love emails. You can't erase emails.
Then, the Senate's new secret health care bill is out, and it's already in deep trouble. And a reminder from France that this is the man we elected president. And All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Now that Donald Trump Jr.'s emails have provided evidence that there was, at the least, attempted collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, the president and his allies are shifting to a different argument. Collusion is fine. Everybody does it. After spending the past few days hunkered down at the White House, reportedly fuming over the news that his top campaign aides, including his son and son-in-law, met with a Russian lawyer last summer to try and collaborate on defeating Hillary Clinton, today, during a trip to Paris, the president made his first public comments on the controversy.
I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research, or even research into your opponent. I've had many people, I have only been in politics for 2 years, but I've had many people call up, oh, gee, we have information on this factor or this person or, frankly, Hillary. That's very standard in politics. Politics is not the nicest business in the world, but it's very standard where they have information and you take the information.
Many political professionals from across the ideological spectrum say that's not true. They'd never accept dirt on an opponent from a dubious source, much less from an adversarial foreign power. In one famous incident during the 2000 presidential race, the Gore campaign received a mysterious copy of the Bush campaign's debate prep materials, which could have given their candidate an advantage in that debate, and they immediately called the FBI to report it. Now, some legal experts even argue that it doesn't matter whether the Trump campaign actually obtained anything from the Russian lawyer, that Donald Trump Jr. broke the law just by taking the meeting, though that's a contested interpretation. Now, on the way to France, in a conversation aboard Air Force One, the president pointed out to reporters that treason, at least, is off the table. When they say treason, you know what treason is? That's Julius and Ethel Rosenberg for giving the atomic bomb, okay? In that same conversation on Air Force One, the president told reporters Don is, as many of you know Don, he's a good boy, he's a good kid. In fact, the president's eldest son is 39 years old, just 10 days younger than French President Emmanuel Macron. In the coming days, Trump Jr. may get another chance to explain his meeting with the Russian lawyer and the email exchange that led up to it. The heads of the Senate Judiciary Committee, that would be Republican Chuck Grassley, Ranking Member Democrat Dianne Feinstein, both say they want the president's son to testify under oath, possibly as soon as next week, and they may be willing to use their subpoena power to make it happen. And while Trump Jr. may be in the crosshairs, the person who suffered the most damage from the revelations the past few days from a legal perspective is probably his brother-in-law, Jared Kushner. We now know definitively that this meeting last summer with the Russian lawyer was one of 3 meetings with Russian nationals last year, which Kushner failed to disclose on security clearance forms under penalty of perjury. One with the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, reportedly to set up a Kremlin back channel away from the prying eyes of U.S. intelligence, and another with the head of a sanctioned Russian bank. Kushner had to revise those forms, and according to reporting by the New York Times, later confirmed by NBC News, he supplemented the list of foreign contacts 3 times, adding more than 100 names. I'm joined now by Congressman Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California, member of the House Intelligence Committee. The president and his defenders say this is not a big deal. Anyone would take the meeting. Most people would take the meeting. Do you think that's true?
What a trajectory, Chris, that we've gone down. You look at where this started. The president said, no Russia, no collusion. Well, certainly the contacts have been exposed. They've been confronted with them. They've had to acknowledge them. And now where we are at in this trajectory is the president is saying, so what? That's what politics is. Hillary would have been worse. We were going to make America great. It's actually quite sickening, his view of politics and our elections. And so I think things have gotten much worse for the president, and now I hope that people at home care and they realize it's costing us everything.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that if people understand that the president's very, very disturbing view of politics, that it means cheat at all costs, is costing us everything. It's gridlocked Washington. It's affected our ability to stand up for their jobs, their health care, their kids, and their democracy, that they understand that because he has this view, it's hurting them. I think that Republicans in Congress hopefully will finally care too and be the check that we need them to be.
Do you believe the President of the United States when he says he did not know about the meeting or the email?
Chris, based on what he said about President Obama wiretapping him, what he said about James Comey's tapes, I don't. And unless what he says is verified by other sources, I'm inclined not to believe him.
Jared Kushner has now been caught filling out an SF-86 form that was obviously and clearly woefully incomplete. There are calls to block his security clearance, although that's ultimately a decision made by the President of the United States. What's your view of this?
And my view is, you have to focus on the principle. The President is, presiding over our country, and I don't want to be distracted by others in the administration and, focus too much on their security clearances. The President has to ultimately take responsibility, or we need to hold him accountable by a thoughtful and aggressive use of the subpoena process in Congress.
Were you surprised by the appearance of this email?
No. Chris, I would have been more surprised if we found out they were emailing with representatives from another country. This actually brings into focus the constellation of contacts that the Trump campaign had with Russia. Now they all make a lot more sense.
Are we going to learn more things about this?
Well, if we do our job in Congress, I think we will be able to tell the American people whether these were all coincidences and just a mere attempt to work with the Russians, or whether these contacts converged with an organized campaign to influence and interfere in the election.
There's also been the issue of Jeff Sessions, who today turned over a sort of redacted SF-86 form. That's that security clearance form, saying no context to the Russians, but with the sort of asterisk that he didn't include any that might have been in his official capacity as a senator. Are you satisfied we know everything we need to know about the Attorney General?
No, and I say that, Chris, because he has in the past failed to disclose contacts. Even if he thinks he shouldn't have to disclose them in his official capacity, I think to just, get rid of the perception that's out there that he, hasn't been forthcoming, he should have disclosed every contact he's had in the last at least 5 years with Russians or other foreigners, just so that we could be assured that there's nothing else out there that he's holding back. And it's too bad that he's taken that position.
What is your understanding of the timeline of the work that's happening here? It seems to me crucial and important at this moment. Given the sort of bombshell of what we've learned in the last 3 days, between Mueller's investigation, your committee's investigation, the Senate Intel Committee's investigation, is there a kind of urgency here in terms of the pace at which this is all conducted?
It's moving very, very fast, and we want to make sure that we're responsible with, the pace that it's moving at. We don't want to be as irresponsible with the facts as the president has been, and so that means being in the House to conduct our own honest investigation that can corroborate or repudiate the evidence that's out there. But I do hope that in short order we can tell the American people what happened, whether anyone worked with the Russians, and then put the reforms in place so this never happens again. Because, again, the cost of all of this chaos has been our ability to do the work that people in our district sent us to do. And it's just grinding this country to a halt.
Do you learn new things every week? Do you feel like you're receiving a steady stream of information that's giving you a clearer picture of what actually definitively happened?
Yeah, without even talking about what we learn on the classified side, Chris, if the president were able to delete all of the classified information, I think the American people have in the public realm enough information to know that he and his campaign, his family and his businesses had personal, political, and financial ties with the Russians, and that they attempted to work with the Russians to damage Hillary Clinton and help the president win an election.
All right, Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you.
My pleasure.
Joining me now, MSNBC